I said out of the car. Now. Officer Barnes yanked open the door so hard the hinges screamed. 12-year-old Corey stumbled out, shaking, his hands raised in the air, clutching a Happy Meal. His mother, Dena, screamed from the driver's seat, but 3 guns were already aimed at her. "Don't move," barked a second officer. No one told her why they were stopped. No one asked for license or registration. And when she reached for her phone to call someone who might help, a baton shattered her window. Her son's face was pressed to the asphalt, crying. And she still had no idea what they'd done wrong. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. The parking lot outside Red Finch Grocery in Pasadena was nearly empty when Dena Wallace parked her car under a flickering lamp post. It was late, a Thursday night. Her son, Corey, had fallen asleep in the back seat on the way home from tutoring. They had stopped only for orange juice and his favorite fries. Nothing else. No noise. No drama. Dena was tired, but not careless. She always scanned her surroundings. But this time, someone else was watching her. 2 squad cars idled across the lot. Inside one of them, Officer Harold Barnes adjusted the rearview mirror. His partner, Kincaid, chewed gum too loudly. Black Escalade. Tinted windows. No plates. Barnes tapped the wheel. "That ring any bells?" Kincaid glanced up. "Want to run it?" Barnes was already stepping out. "I've got a feeling." Dena had just buckled Corey back in, fries in hand, when she saw a flashlight beam slice across her windshield. Her stomach tightened. Not this again. The officer didn't knock. Just opened the door. "Out of the vehicle. Right now." "Excuse me?" She kept her tone calm. Polite. "Hands on the steering wheel." "Step out. You match a suspect profile." "I'm sorry, but what profile?" That word again. Profile. She had heard it before. It never came with specifics. Corey stirred behind her. "Mommy?" That was when Barnes reached in and yanked the door wider, his other hand resting on his sidearm. "You resisting?" Dena felt a hot flush rise up her neck. She hadn't moved. She hadn't said no. And yet, the second officer appeared suddenly on the passenger side, tapping the glass with a flashlight. Corey jumped, terrified. The Happy Meal slipped from his lap. "Step out of the car." Barnes's voice now had that brittle sharpness. Not anger. Threat. Dena unbuckled. Slowly. Every movement measured. Deliberate. The door opened wider. And before she could say another word, she was pulled out. Arms behind her back. Corey screamed. The officers said nothing. No Miranda. No explanation. Her knees hit the concrete. "There's a child in the back," she shouted. Barnes turned. Looked. Raised his brows. "This him?" Kincaid shrugged. "Could be. Age matches." They opened the back door. Corey panicked, tried to climb over the seat. "Don't move." Kincaid barked, drawing his taser. Corey froze. His hands were raised, the fries now crushed against his chest. 2 minutes later, they were both in cuffs. No one had read a name. No one had checked her license. But across the radio, a vague Bolo report had gone out 30 minutes earlier. 2 suspects in a dark SUV. Possibly armed. Possibly black. That was all it took. By the time Dena was in the back of the patrol car, her knees scraped raw, she asked the question no one had answered. "What do you think I did?" Barnes didn't even look back. "We'll find out soon enough." "She has a kid in the back seat," the female officer muttered under her breath as she leaned toward the patrol car. Sergeant Colburn didn't respond right away. He just kept scanning the woman's ID in his hand. Name, Dena Wallace. No warrants. Local address. Clean record. Expired gym membership. Nothing suspicious. Nothing. And yet, she was still in cuffs. Why is she still restrained? He finally asked. Officer Barnes shrugged without meeting his eyes. Procedure. Non-compliant driver. Matched a vague bolo. Colburn raised an eyebrow. Define non-compliant. Barnes shifted. She questioned my instructions. Refused to exit immediately. Colburn turned. The woman in the back seat of the squad car wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. She was staring straight ahead, quiet, expression locked in something between fear and fury. "Did you even ask her name before the cuffs?" Barnes didn't answer. Across the parking lot, Corey sat in the back of the second cruiser, holding his crushed paper bag like a shield. He hadn't spoken since they separated him from his mother. "He 13? Colburn asked. 12, said the female officer. "No record. No school report. Just a scared kid." Colburn sighed, stepped away, and radioed dispatch. "This is Unit 7. What's the status on that bolo out of Torrance? Crackling silence. Then, be advised that bolo was canceled 42 minutes ago. Suspects were apprehended 5 miles from the original location. Description confirmed. Late model Ford Edge, not an SUV. Colburn turned slowly. You had this family in custody for nearly an hour. You never checked the update? Barnes opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Release them. Now. Should we log anything? Kincaid asked, almost sheepishly. You want to log a false detainment? Be my guest, Colburn shot back. He walked to Dena's window and gently opened the door. Ma'am, you're free to go. She didn't move. I'd like to speak to internal affairs, she said quietly. Colburn nodded. I'll give you that contact. Personally. And my son? He signaled. The second cruiser opened. Corey stepped out slowly, unsure. The second he saw his mother, he ran. She opened her arms, cuffs still dangling from one wrist. They locked together, wordless. Barnes turned his back. What about the report? Kincaid whispered. Colburn looked up. There is no report. Because nothing happened here. But that wasn't true. Everything had happened. The next morning, Dena stood in front of the precinct desk in downtown Pasadena, a printout of the Bolo report in one hand and a bruised wrist on the other. She wore her court heels. She used to save them for client meetings. Not anymore. I'm here to file a formal complaint against Officers Barnes and Kincaid. Misconduct. False arrest. Racial profiling. The officer behind the desk didn't even look up. Name? Dena Wallace. I'm a licensed federal defense attorney. That got his attention. He typed. Paused. Typed again. You said last night? Parking lot near Red Finch? Yes. There's no record of an arrest matching that description. Dena blinked. I was handcuffed. My 12-year-old son was separated from me. There has to be. He turned the screen slightly. Empty fields. No incident report. No booking. Not even a traffic stop. It was gone. Everything. She took a breath. Who logs arrest data? That'd be Sergeant Colburn's shift. I can get his extension, but if he didn't enter a file. Then there's nothing to trace, she finished for him. She stepped back, stunned. No evidence. No accountability. Just a bad dream, if dreams left bruises. Across town, Barnes sat in the locker room, tying his boots. Kincaid leaned in the doorway, sipping vending machine coffee. Think she's coming back? Doesn't matter. Barnes's voice was low. Colburn buried it. We're clean. That kid, though. Kincaid hesitated. Barnes shot him a look. You're getting soft? Just saying. You saw his face. He's not forgetting that. Barnes stood, grabbed his belt. Kids forget. Parents don't. She's the one we'll need to worry about. By noon, Dena was in front of her office computer, sleeves rolled, legal pad open. She wasn't trying to sue. Not yet. She was trying to find her name in the system. Traffic stop records. Dashcam logs. Patrol dispatch. Radio calls. She found nothing. But what she did find made her skin crawl. The timestamp from the Bolo update. 42 minutes before she was released. Meaning they knew. They knew she wasn't a suspect. Knew she had a kid in the car. Knew the original report didn't even match her car make. And they kept her cuffed anyway. Because they could. Her eyes locked onto one phrase buried in the update. Suspects confirmed. Male. Ford Edge. Glendale jurisdiction. She whispered it aloud. Male. Not female. Not a child. Not me. She picked up her phone. Hello. This is Attorney Wallace. I need body cam footage. All units assigned to Red Finch Grocery. Date. Last night. Time window. 9 p.m. to midnight. Do you have a case number? No. I have a civil rights violation. Silence. Ma'am. Unless it's an active investigation or you're the party of record. I am the record. There just isn't one. At home, Corey wouldn't come out of his room. He hadn't touched his tablet. Not even the fries she reheated. When she knocked gently, he spoke through the door. If I had been older, would they have shot me? She couldn't answer. Not then. Not yet. On Sunday morning, Dena opened her front door to grab the newspaper. She froze. There was no newspaper. Just a manila envelope, placed carefully on her doormat. No name. No return address. Just 2 initials scribbled on the back. AB. Her stomach clenched. Inside, a single flash drive. No note. No label. She closed the door, locked all 3 bolts, and took it straight to her laptop. It Word. 1 folder. Timestamped. 10:12 p.m. Red Finch, Unit 24. She clicked it. The footage was raw. Body cam angle. Static-filled audio. Barnes. Standing outside her car. Gun drawn. Her voice. I haven't done anything. His voice. Shut up and step out. She skipped ahead. Corey. Hands raised. Crying. Then the sound of the cuffs. Click. Click. The time code proved everything. 10 minutes after the bolo was cleared. Her hands trembled on the keyboard. Someone had leaked this. Someone inside. But why? She copied the file. Saved it under 5 names. Uploaded it to cloud backups. OneDrive labeled, if I disappear. Then she closed the laptop and looked out the window. The street was empty. But her pulse wouldn't slow down. By Monday, she was back at the precinct. This time with a flash drive of her own. I'd like to speak to internal affairs, she told the front desk. The officer, a new face, checked his screen. Do you have an appointment? I have evidence. Misconduct. Timestamped. Labeled. He paused. Picked up the phone. Whispered into the receiver. Dena waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then a woman emerged. Plain clothes. Clipboard in hand. Ms. Wallace? Yes. Come with me. The internal affairs interview room was plain. A single desk. 2 chairs. No clock. The woman introduced herself as Investigator Rourke. I understand you believe you were unlawfully detained. I was. And I have proof. She slid the drive across the table. Rourke plugged it in. Watched in silence. When the footage ended, she leaned back slowly. Where did you get this? It was left at my house. By whom? I don't know. Someone who wants this scene. Rourke nodded. But her face was unreadable. Ms. Wallace, may I ask something? Of course. Are you planning to go public with this? Dena met her gaze. Should I need to? Rourke was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed the laptop. We'll be in touch. That night, around 11:30, her doorbell rang. She didn't move. It rang again. Twice. She stayed still, heart pounding, staring at the shadow through the peephole. Then a voice. This is Officer Barnes. Just want to chat. She didn't open it. Didn't speak. Just backed away and dialed 911. What's your emergency? A man who unlawfully detained me is on my porch. He says he's a cop, but I don't know why he's here. The dispatcher paused, then quietly said, Ma'am, no units were dispatched to your address tonight. Dena hung up and didn't sleep at all. The next morning, Dena drove Corey to school in silence. He didn't ask why the locks had been changed overnight, or why she walked him all the way to the front gate and waited until he disappeared inside. She didn't tell him that Officer Barnes had stood on their porch less than 12 hours ago. She didn't tell him the police never confirmed he was even on duty. Some truths were weapons, but others were just poison. At 11:03 a.m., Dena sat across from her longtime friend, Rhea Sandoval, an assistant DA, in a small booth at the courthouse cafe. I need help off the record, Dena said, sliding over the drive. Rhea plugged it into her tablet. Watched in complete silence. When it ended, she didn't say anything for a full minute. Then, this isn't just misconduct. I know. It's criminal. Dena nodded once. You can't go to press with this yet. Not without an affidavit. Chain of custody. A named source. That's the problem. It came anonymously. Then it won't hold. Rhea looked at her friend carefully. But if this leak came from inside the department, someone's scared. Which means this officer. He's not just a bully. He's protected. By afternoon, Dena submitted an official FOIA request for body cam archives from both units, 24 and 31. She got a response 5 hours later. Request denied. Footage under internal review. Release prohibited pending investigation. She called the listed number. I submitted this before I knew the footage was being suppressed. The voice on the other end was cold. Then you understand why it can't be shared. I am the subject of the footage. That doesn't change the department's current posture. She hung up, closed her laptop, sat there, one hand on the table, the other still shaking. At 7:42 p.m., she left Corey with her sister and drove alone to the grocery store parking lot, back where it started. The same lot, same light, empty. But something had changed. The curb near the entrance had been repainted. The cameras that once pointed down toward the lot now tilted upward, away from the ground. She stood there, just watching. Then she saw it. A black unmarked car, parked 2 rows behind hers. Lights off, engine running. She got in her car and started to drive. The black car pulled out seconds later. She didn't speed, didn't panic. She took 4 turns, through side streets, commercial blocks. The car stayed behind her. No sirens, No flashers. No badge. She pulled into the hospital parking structure and parked. Got out quickly. Entered through the ER side entrance. 15 minutes later, she exited from a different side. Called a cab. Watched the black car idle outside the structure. Waiting. It never moved. They weren't trying to stop her anymore. They were watching. No badge. No backup. Just eyes. And patience. It was almost midnight when Dena opened the old wooden box buried deep in her closet. Inside, 3 files. All sealed. All untouched for years. Her father had been a civil rights investigator in the 80s. He taught her 3 things. Never trust verbal denials. Always copy the paper trail. And if they erase your name, burn their reputation. She scanned the documents. Fingers flying across the keyboard. Old reflexes waking up. Patterns. Codes. How rogue units erase logs. Who signs clearance for footage suppressions. She didn't need access. She needed a leak. The next morning, Dena walked into the courthouse, not as a victim, but as counsel. She sat in the gallery during arraignments. Took notes. Watched who whispered to who. Which judges asked too few questions. Which officers stood too far from the bench. When her name was whispered, she didn't respond. When her presence was noticed, she smiled politely. They were used to seeing her in defense, not in reconnaissance. At 2:43 p.m., she watched Barnes walk through the side corridor. He wasn't in uniform, just a suit. He wasn't listed on the docket, but he walked into Judge Frey's chambers like he belonged. She noted the time, the door, the clerk who didn't blink. She left quietly. Back in the car, she wrote down one sentence. Connected to Fry. Personal access. Above channel. That evening, she picked up Corey from school. He had bruises under his eyes. He hadn't spoken all day. But as she drove, he finally asked, if the police lie, who do they answer to? She thought for a moment. Not enough people, baby. Not enough. He nodded. Looked out the window. Are you going to fix it? I'm going to try. Good. He didn't say anything else. But when they got home, he unlocked the door with his own key. First time in a week. She noticed. Said nothing. At midnight, her email pinged. No name. Just a subject line. You want it public? Start here. One link. She clicked it. A password-protected drive. 23 files. Zip folder labeled. Unit 24. Unedited. Every shift. Every traffic stop. Including hers. She typed in her initials. The folder opened. And there it was, not just her footage, but Barnes's entire shift history. She saw timestamps that didn't match reports. Stops with no legal basis. Threats. Silence. Then one entry that made her stop breathing. A teenage boy, cuffed in a parking lot. Alone. No weapon. No resistance. Then a scream. The footage cut out. She tried to reload it. Corrupt. She opened another file. Same pattern. 10 seconds before things escalated, gone. She didn't know what she was looking at yet, but she knew what she had. A key. To a pattern. And a predator. At 4:16 a.m., Dena poured black coffee into a cracked mug and watched the progress bar crawl across her screen. She'd spent all night decrypting corrupted segments. Barnes had wiped footage before. But whoever sent her these files had embedded something deeper. Data strings, timestamps, GPS tags. She pulled one shift log at random. Location, Highland and Grove. Time, 8:37 p.m. Stop juvenile. Black hoodie. Possible loitering. No footage. No report. She cross-referenced the date with the hospital logs. And found it. An ER admission. Boy. 15. Facial trauma. Lacerated wrist. Discharged after 2 hours. No police report filed. Pattern. She pulled 5 more. Same outcome. No charges. No records. But real injuries. The same officer name at the top every time. Barnes. By 9 a.m., Dena stood at the Pasadena Public Records Office with a notarized motion. She didn't file it. Not yet. She just showed it to the clerk. I need a copy of every use of force review for Officer Harold Barnes. Last 3 years. Include dismissed claims. The clerk hesitated. That's sealed under administrative review. Dena smiled. I know. That's why I'm asking. She slipped him a sheet of paper. Not a warrant. Not a demand. Just a name. The boy from the ER. Date. Time. Condition. The clerk glanced down. Then up. His face changed. Come back in 2 hours. At 11:23 a.m., the clerk handed her a plain envelope under the counter. You didn't get this from me. She nodded once. Inside, 9 internal memos. All complaints. All inconclusive. 7 involved teenagers. 2 women under 30. All had been dismissed for insufficient evidence. All mentioned Officer Barnes. None had body cam files attached. She scanned the signatory initials. Same IA supervisor. Same phrasing. No variation. It was a machine. That night, Dena sat with Corey as he played a quiet game on his tablet. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He looked up. "Why didn't you cry that night?" He paused. "Because you didn't." She exhaled. "I was scared too, you know." Corey nodded. "I know. But if I had cried, maybe he would have thought I was weak. And if he did, maybe he would have hit me." She turned her face. Didn't let him see the tear. Just one. Then she stood and walked to her office. She emailed herself a single phrase. Chronology of non-arrest with injuries. It was time to draft the letter. Not to the police. Not to IA. But to the Bar Association. To the Ethics Board. To state-level judicial review. Barnes wasn't just dangerous. He was protected. But protection left trails. And Dena Wallace was trained to find every last one. It was printed on plain white paper. No firm logo. No signature block. No dramatic font. Just 12 paragraphs. Each one built like a legal blade. Dena titled it, "Formal Notification of Officer Pattern Misconduct. Internal Escalation Attached." It was addressed not to the precinct, not to internal affairs, but to the California Post Commission, the Office of the Inspector General, the State Bar Oversight Division, and the Civilian Review Panel for Officer Conduct. It wasn't an accusation. It was documentation, and every fact in it had a timestamp. She emailed it at 6:42 a.m., then printed 3 hard copies, placed each in an envelope, and walked them to separate Dropbox across the city. One in the courthouse, one at City Hall, one outside the police union building. No one saw her. No one needed to. By the time anyone responded, the files would already be duplicated in 6 different places. And then she waited. 3 days passed. No call. No visit. Nothing. Until Thursday morning. She arrived home to find her mailbox door hanging open. The lock had been ripped clean off. Inside, nothing. Not even junk mail. She scanned the street. The same black sedan from before sat 3 houses down. Still. Quiet. She didn't flinch. She just walked inside and began drafting the next letter. This one titled, "Obstruction by Non-State Actors. Unacknowledged Surveillance Pattern." She didn't send it. Not yet. It was bait. That afternoon, she received an email from a city office she hadn't contacted. Pasadena Youth Intervention Liaison. Subject line, "Notice of Hearing, Complaint Filed." Her hands froze. The document was official. She was being summoned to answer a charge of misconduct involving a minor, her son. The complaint claimed she had subjected a child to emotional endangerment during an unlawful confrontation with law enforcement, possibly provoking escalation. No name on the complaint. No evidence attached. Just the hearing date. Monday, 9 a.m. She read it twice. Then laughed once. Cold. Dry. Then deleted the draft she'd written. She opened a new file. Title, "Preemptive Defense Submission. Counterclaim W/Video Evidence and Pattern Report." Attached were the body cam footage, the ER record from the unrelated juvenile injuries, her own license documentation, and the full list of dismissed complaints against Barnes. This wasn't a defense. It was a war declaration. And they'd made the mistake of thinking she was still playing defense. She clicked send and waited. The hearing room was plain. Just 3 panelists. 1 clerk. No cameras. Dena sat straight backed across from them, a leather folder unopened on the table. The lead panelist, a man in his 60s, cleared his throat. "Ms. Wallace, this isn't a criminal proceeding. It's a child welfare review. We simply want to understand it." She cut him off. "Before you begin, please confirm the origin of the complaint." He hesitated. It was submitted anonymously through city channels. With no signature, no evidence, and no direct claim of harm. It was forwarded by a police intermediary. Dena opened the folder, pulled out 2 documents, placed them side by side. 1. The complaint. 2. The timestamped GPS log showing Officer Barnes was outside her house the night before. That intermediary was also outside my home without cause or warrant. Off-duty. Armed. Silence. The woman on the right leaned forward. "You're asserting intimidation?" Dena's voice was ice. "I'm asserting retaliation." From an officer with a known misconduct pattern. Here are 9 prior IA complaints dismissed under identical wording. None investigated. All sealed. She slid copies forward. The clerk looked stunned. The panelist in the center asked softly, "Why would he come to your home?" Dena didn't blink. "Because he thought no one would believe me. Because for years, no one has." The panel went silent. She stood. "Unless you have direct evidence or a court-ordered mandate, I'm leaving. You can submit your findings to the same agencies I already notified." No one stopped her. She walked out without looking back. That night, she found the second flash drive, this time taped to the inside of her mailbox. Inside, one video, grainy, dated 3 years ago. Barnes, pushing a young man into the hood of a car. The kid was screaming something, over and over. "I didn't do anything. Please. I'm not him." Then the sound. A short crack. Then another. The video cut. The file name said, Dylan, :2019_final.mp4. She searched the name and found it in a lawsuit dismissed without evidence. Plaintiff dropped charges. Cited personal safety concerns. But now, the video existed. She saved it under one word. Insurance. At 2:11 a.m., a brick shattered her front window. No note. No figure. Just the sound. Corey screamed from his room. Dena ran, shielded him. Told him not to move. Called 911. 5 minutes later, a patrol unit arrived. Different officers. Polite. Nervous. She gave them the footage. The flash drive. The name. One of them stared at it too long. "Ma'am, are you saying this involves a serving officer?" She nodded. "I'm saying this time, I won't wait for someone else to die." 3 weeks passed. No more flash drives. No bricks. No tail cars. Just silence. Until a Thursday afternoon, when Dena received an email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject line. Barnes. Closed session. Not public. No message. Just a location. A time. City Hall. Conference room 6B. 11 a.m. She read it twice, then packed a folder and walked out the door. The room was exactly as described. No cameras. No microphones. But there were 6 people at the table. 4 in suits. 1 in uniform. And one she recognized instantly. Barnes. He looked older now. Not physically, just smaller. As if the silence had compressed him. No one acknowledged her when she stepped in. One of the suited men finally said, "This is a closed review, ma'am. Please exit." Dena opened her folder. Under Section 1487 of the Civilian Oversight Act, any documented subject of direct misconduct may observe internal proceedings provided evidence was supplied through official complaint. She held up the stamped receipt. Silence. Then, "You may sit." Quietly. She sat. Barnes didn't look at her. He was staring straight ahead, lips tight, hands clenching the edges of the table. The officer in uniform cleared her throat. "We've reviewed footage submitted via outside leak channels. Timestamped, traceable to Unit 24. Including the Wallace detainment, as well as a file labeled Dylan Coleman." One of the men spoke sharply. "These should have been suppressed. That material wasn't vetted through." "The material is real, sir. And admissible." The uniformed woman continued. "We've also reopened 4 prior complaints. 2 plaintiffs have agreed to submit sworn affidavits under sealed identity. One of them is a minor." Barnes finally spoke. His voice cracked. "This is a setup. You're letting criminals write history." Dena stood. Calmly. Clearly. "No. Just letting survivors write records." She placed a final file on the table. A letter. Not legal. Not official. A letter written by Corey. 8 lines. Handwritten. Titled, That Night. She didn't say anything else. Just turned and walked out. That night, the city issued a statement. Effective immediately, Officer Harold Barnes has been placed under administrative removal pending external investigation. No press. No headline. Just a 2-line update in a public personnel log. But inside her home, Corey stood a little straighter. And outside, the black car never came back. A week later, she received a package. No label. Inside, a single silver pin. Standard issue. Pasadena PD. The kind worn on the left chest. It had a crack down the center. No note. She placed it in the drawer. Closed it. Then returned to her desk. And got back to work. Because some wars don't end with noise. They end with silence that finally feels clean. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.